Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. May peace be upon you. My name is Asma Rahman. I'm the National Chapter Manager with the National Office of Council on American Islamic Relations. Welcome to the Friday night episode of the Daily Dose COVID Conversations with CAIR. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know there are a lot of great webinars happening tonight, what with this being the last Friday before Ramadan. And so we really appreciate you joining us, and we hope that tonight is beneficial to all of you, inshallah. We have a great program lined up. We're very blessed with the opportunity to have the much beloved Anse Dr. Tamara Gray to give us spiritual guidance and encouragement as we brave this difficult, uncharted time in our lives. A Ramadan like one we've never seen before, with so many uncertainties, challenges, and opportunities for growth, inshallah. But first, I'm very excited to introduce my co-host, Brother Faizan Sayed. He is doing excellent work as the Executive Director of CAIR Dallas, Fort Worth. Faizan, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing very well, and I'm very happy to be here and very honored for the opportunity to co-host tonight's Daily Dose.
Great. Well, we've heard that in Dallas, the governor is thinking of lifting restrictions earlier than anticipated. How is the community feeling about this? And, also, how are you all doing? We'd love to hear about what the scene is like on the ground in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Well, of course. So, my name is Faizan Sayed. I'm the Executive Director for the Council on American Islamic Relations here in Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth. And what we saw when the coronavirus first started is just how quickly it devolved and how quickly it really sprung up on us. I remember I was at the Valley Ranch Islamic Center, where just Sheikh Omar Suleiman's Islamic Center, where he's the Imam of. And I remember 2 days before they stopped Jummahs, that people were talking about, will we have Jummah Salahs? Will we be able to continue to come into the Islamic Center? And there's a real resistance to this idea that that's just completely far-fetched and impossible. And subhanAllah, within just a few days after those conversations, VRIC and many of the Islamic centers in Texas and all across the country really stopped Jummah prayers and stopped the 5 daily prayers as well. But this really sprung up on a lot of us, and I think a lot of us are still getting accustomed to living with this new normal. With that said, we now have heard that the Texas governor is thinking about slowly reopening the state of Texas to businesses, to essential businesses and things of that nature. The challenge with that is that Texas right now, the corona is one of the most hard hit states when it comes to the coronavirus, and it's one of the least states that's really done any of the testing for coronavirus as well. What I mean by this is that Texas has a population of 29 million and only about 170,000 people have been tested. Compare that to New York, that's a population of 20 million, 500,000 people have been tested. In Texas, over 428 people have lost their lives. We're extremely worried and concerned that if the state reopens, it could potentially mean another round of being put into isolation, another round of not being, just making the program not only cost more lives, but really cost more overall within the community. So that's something that we're definitely concerned about as well. Alhamdulillah, though, the bright side is that we've seen many organizations, Muslims and people of all faiths, coming together to feed others, to start fundraising programs to help those who are most vulnerable. And specifically in Texas, the Imam Council, they started a fund specifically for imams. We know many of the people who are losing their jobs are imams, and because Islamic Center rely on the Friday donations that they receive, and those are no longer coming in. So alhamdulillah, we see some of the good, the concern, but of course, people stepping up to respond to this, the coronavirus pandemic.
How are you and your family doing? How many of you are there?
Alhamdulillah, we're doing very well. I'm actually living in St. Louis, Missouri. I came back here for spring break and all the flights got canceled at the time. So I'm here right now with my 3 children. They're 5-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And then also my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and my niece and nephew are living with us. So that's another 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So we've got 5 infant children basically living with us, and then 4 adults. But alhamdulillah, we're all really getting along and we're all helping each other take care of our kids and really trying to stay safe during the pandemic.
Wow, so you have a full house.
Alhamdulillah, yeah, it could be a TV show
not
over
social
here.
distancing from your family, mashallah.
Mashallah, yeah. No, we could do a whole TV show here if we had to.
Well, I'm surprised we can't hear anybody right now on your video.
I'm sure you'll
it's
hear
very
them.
quiet. Sorry?
I said, I'm sure you'll hear them soon enough.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Faizan. And without further ado, it is my immense honor and privilege to introduce our guest for tonight, Anse Dr. Tamara Gray. She is well known to many of us, but I will introduce her for those who may not know her yet. Anse Tamara resides in Minneapolis. She converted to Islam at the age of 18. She is, mashallah, a hafidha of the Quran. She has her ijaza in Sirah and other Islamic sciences as well. She holds a doctorate in leadership from the University of St. Thomas. She holds a master's degree in curriculum theory and instruction from Temple University. And she spent 20 years studying traditional and classical Islamic sciences, Quran, and Arabic in Damascus, Syria. Anse Tamara is also an author, a translator, and a public speaker. Her publications range from several culturally appropriate English language curriculum programs to translations of sacred texts, mashallah. Her book, Joy Jots, Exercises for a Happy Heart, which I have right here. I am reading currently.
Yeah, the first edition, the very, very first. Oh, no, that I can't say. Maybe that's the second. Is that the second? Oh, first edition, yeah.
Well, clearly I should have gotten the second one, I guess, but
No,
that's what I'm reading.
I mean, you're one of the first buyers. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. Well, for those who don't know, it's a collection of 52 weekly essays that take the reader through a year of seasons, blessings, and joyful spiritual growth. I highly, highly recommend this book for everyone, inshallah. And last but definitely not least, Anse Tamara is the founder of Rabata, an organization dedicated to promoting positive cultural change through creative educational experiences. Anse, thank you so much for honoring us with your presence and sharing some of your vast knowledge with all of us on the show tonight. It means so much. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brother Faizan.
Well, thank you so much for that. So, one of the questions that I have that many families are considering is how should we see this Ramadan as an opportunity for spiritual growth, despite the fact that, we can't go to the masjid or pray tarawih or have iftars with friends and family? What advice do you have for the community?
Well, first, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for having me here. And thank you for doing these weekly, what did you call them? COVID conversations?
Daily dose COVID conversations with CAIR, and it's actually
Cool.
every evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through.
I love it. I love it. It's a great service to the community, mashallah. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, salatu salam ala khas al-anbiya, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi ajma'in. To address your question, I think really we need to keep something in mind, which is that we have developed a habit of Ramadan that is not necessarily the traditional habit of Ramadan. By traditional, I don't mean our tradition, I mean an older tradition. Traditionally, especially scholars and especially the awliya and the ulama, if you will, when Ramadan came, they would close their doors. That was the time when they would sit down and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fill up their spiritual gas tanks for the rest of the year of intense giving and working that they would do all year long. So I think the first thing to do is to question our assumption, to say, is the Ramadan that we are used to, which is a very heavily social Ramadan, is that really the traditional Ramadan, or is it really the best Ramadan for our spiritual growth? So when we question our assumption, we open our heart to the possibility that this particular Ramadan might be, in its uniqueness, a unique growth spurt for us as a community. Tarawih prayers originally were not a jama'ah prayer. I mean, it was a prayer that people prayed alone. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ did pray with people. And yes, later on, Umar ibn al-Khattab brought them all together in the masjid. And yes, this is early tradition. I'm not at all saying that it isn't. But what I'm saying is that it's not something that must be prayed. It doesn't disappear. Its reward doesn't disappear when we pray it alone at home. We just don't, most people don't have the Quran capacity to pray 20 rak'ahs or even 8 rak'ahs, long rak'ahs with what they've memorized from Quran. So we might need some creativity there. But I think it's a real opportunity to spend time alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to spend time to bring back the sunnah of i'tikaf, the let's say quiet meditation, being alone, worship that isn't actually only for Ramadan, but it is sunnah to do it in Ramadan, and it is unique. It is uniquely practiced in Ramadan amongst Muslims. Of course, it's uniquely practiced in mosques, and here we're talking about creating our own masjid at home, for example, and saying Hada Masjidi and then doing an i'tikaf there. So I definitely think this is an opportunity for new experiences with ibadah, new experiences with our children. If I may address children, you didn't specifically ask about children, but a lot of people are really worried about how am I going to make this fun for my kids? And I just want to say it's okay if it's not fun. It's okay. Like, it's okay if it's not fun. We want to, it will be, if we make this Ramadan about family and we're honest with our children about our own struggles, and we come together in prayer and we come together in dua and we break fast together and we talk to our children and they join us in fasting, if they're young, if they join us in short fast in the day, let's say, they will have a beautiful Ramadan. It's racing around in the masjid isn't really, that's a nice memory too, I know, for many kids, but we have this great opportunity to give them something even more beautiful than what we've been giving them before.
Yeah, this is really true. I think the next question is both for adults and for children, really. How can we deal with the loneliness and feelings of isolation as a result of being far from our loved ones? Not being able to attend our masajid, not to be able to give and receive hugs. Obviously understanding that itikaf is really important, but Ramadan is sometimes, the only social month of course, it's the most social month that people have, but it is a way of connection. So there's obviously balance, right? So how do we deal with the loneliness part of it?
Yeah, so I do think that having a positive attitude is really important. So here we are all together, able to talk to each other and to all the people that are joining us here tonight. And I'm sure that many people are on Zoom and on FaceTime and on these different platforms to share and talk with one another. And I want us not to belittle the beauty of that. I know it's not the same, but it is an enormous blessing. When I first moved to Damascus in 1990, I'm not sure, my husband knows the exact date, maybe 92. We didn't have internet maybe was slowly coming there, came maybe next few years, but nothing like it came here in the 90s. If I wanted to talk to my parents or my siblings or my old friends, it was a very, very expensive long distance phone call. And that's a really distant memory that very few people even remember. Young people probably never lived that time where if you wanted to make a phone call, you had to go buy a long distance calling card, pay $20, $30, $40. And then in the middle of your sentence, it's a deadline because the money ran out. And we're not dealing with that at all anymore. I can talk to someone in Bosnia today, just today alone. I spoke to people in like 5 different states, someone in Bosnia, someone in Dubai. And on WhatsApp, I don't even know how many countries I'm talking to people on all the time. So, right. SubhanAllah, it's a real blessing. And I want us to take the time to sit in our blessings, to notice them, to not say, I want it the way I want it, but to say, this is what I have. And let me get curious about what is here for me in this moment. And, loneliness is something that it's certainly real, especially for both extroverts and introverts, but I think especially extroverts who have been quarantining or in lockdown alone in whatever state you happen to be, can be really difficult for that extrovert who really thrives on being with people. And maybe I have a special sort of compassion for extroverts because I am one. So my husband is an extreme introvert. And I said, why are you even complaining? This is like your dream life. And he said, no, I want to be alone when everybody else doesn't want me to be alone. I don't want to be alone because you tell me I have to be. So that was a very interesting perspective. But certainly there are certainly difficulties, but the curiosity, let's get curious about what is in this moment for us, what is in this space for us. And let's also remember that one of the reasons for our loneliness is our great distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because the one who really knows that Allah is always there, always available, is the one who it doesn't mean you're not going to want to be around people. We all like people wanting to be around people is a part of being human. But there's a type of loneliness that will disappear when our deeper feelings are satisfied, that longing and yearning is satisfied by our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is an enormous opportunity for us to be able to do that.
SubhanAllah, I think you make a really insightful point that though many of us might feel lonely in the sense that we can't go to Tarawih, we can't be around other human beings, this has an amazing opportunity for us to reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to really build that love and that connection with Him, who's the one that takes away this type of that loneliness. A question I had for you is when it comes to really bonding with family members, especially if you have children at home, what advice do you have that we can use this Ramadan in order to connect with our children and our family, especially during time like Iftar and Sahur?
Well, I really want to emphasize being honest about where we are. So if you're struggling, if you're someone out there who is struggling with financially, for example, don't go into debt because you don't want to let your kids know that I'm struggling financially. If you are struggling because you're a vulnerable population, you have a lot of fear around being around people that might bring the virus to your home, be honest and talk to your children about it. I mean, obviously you're going to know the age group of your children, but what I mean by that honesty is don't try to pretend that everything is okay if everything is not okay. It's okay to talk to them and let them know that things are not that great. My own granddaughter today was really upset because she can't be special child at school. And it was really serious for her. And she had real tears. She can't be special child because she's not at school. That's what I mean. She can because they're during Zoom, but she doesn't get the stuff she wants.
What is special child, Anse? What is that?
She gets to wear she gets to wear a crown. It's a reading program actually, but she gets to wear a crown. She's 5, she's 6, and she gets to lead her friends, and she gets to be the head of the line and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay. So she doesn't get to be that anymore because she's not going back to school in kindergarten. So I said to her is, and I'm not saying I have like the thing to always say to kids, but what I said to her was, a lot of people are having a hard time right now, and this is really sad that you can't be there. And I understand, like, it's sad. And then I said, let's make dua together. Let's make dua together that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can replace the thing that has made you sad with something that will make you happy. And I mean, it's a very simple thing, but let's really be honest with our children, but also be really emotional with them, feel their emotions, with keeping our own, what do you call them? Our rules, like our rules are remain important and remain in place, and we should have a schedule. And the relationship with our children is really based very much on how much we can be vulnerable with them, especially as they get older. And it doesn't have to be based on, are they having fun?
Yeah, that's so true. I really like your point about, getting curious, Anse. And also that, reminds me of the idea of being present, right? Not always thinking about what you don't have or what you could have in the future, but really feeling what is happening to you in the moment and being grateful for everything that you have and staying connected. I wanted to ask you about, obviously right now, parents have a lot going on, right? They're homeschooling their children. They are also working. And then now in Ramadan, many people, they'll leave the house for iftars, so they don't have to worry about, cooking. That becomes sort of difficult, right? Right now, everyone's like kind of together on top of each other, which can create stress, right? It can heighten feelings of anxiety in some ways as well. What are some, I know you've talked about being grateful, but, that specific idea of having to deliver for your family, not necessarily in the fun sense, but, the food and like just being together. What are some, some tips on how to handle that?
Get everyone involved, whoever happens. If you have people in your house with you, so you have children in your house with you, you have a spouse in your house with you, see if you can get everyone involved in iftar. If you can make food together, perhaps lessen the amount of food that we're making. Let's really make this a Ramadan where we're not because it's difficult to share. It's difficult to send food to the neighbors and stuff, depending on your risk factor. But let's make it a Ramadan where we don't have 16 things on the table, where everyone is together making wholesome food. Maybe make some bread together. I've really been pushing this making bread thing because it really gets you back into finding out where food for children. There's so much benefit in watching all of the process of that bread. Like, you have to put it together, you have to knead it, you have to leave it for a while and come back to it. And you can talk to them about, this is kind of like the spirit where we have to work on it. And then we leave it for a while. We pray, right? And we leave it in a warm place. So we go sit in our prayer in a warm place. And then we go and work it. We work ourselves and we come back and we go in the oven and we grow and look at how we grow and we become something delicious to serve our community, etc. I mean, you can do metaphors all day long when it comes to bread or any other type of food, really. And you could do international. So every day you could have a map of all the Muslim countries, majority Muslim countries on your wall, and choose 30 countries or cities, if you want to go with cities, and find a food that's really traditional for that city and cook it together every day. And you could make a small amount, and then make that thing that everybody will eat in case you don't like that. Whatever it happens to be. And I mean, I think that's a really good way. And let's make dua then for those people. So we can make it a whole curriculum. We cook the food of Malaysia. We make dua for the people of Malaysia. So Malaysians have a very beautiful tradition after the prayer where they shake each other, they shake each other's hand and they touch their heart. So after we pray, we'll shake each other's hand and we'll touch our heart if we're touching each other at home, if everyone is safe at home. And, just really find out what some of just traditions. They don't have to be enormous. Like, it doesn't have to be a Pinterest experience. It can just be a few things that and then pray for them. Let's pray for the people of Malaysia. Maybe learn how to say hello and how to say thank you in the language of that country.
Right.
No, I love it. I think one of the points you mentioned earlier, which is just that if you're gonna cook with purpose, cook with meaning, cook and make dua for the Muslims all around the world. But then also you remind me of something that Sheikh Muhtar Maghrawi said, which is Ramadan is a celebration of not eating. And I think maybe this Ramadan we could actually celebrate that aspect of it. I want to go to a question from one of the audience members. And they wrote that going to the masjid with other Muslims is so beneficial for me and my children because I just don't have any other family except my children. How can I make this Ramadan meaningful with these obstacles?
And I think that Muslim families, right? So it's like, especially also for converts as well, right? Yeah.
So one of the things I studied when I was doing my doctorate is this whole concept of digital religion. And it's really fascinating if you start to really read deeply and widely in the work that has been done in the past 30 years in different religious groups and organizations and by different people in accessing the virtual world for ritual and for community and leadership and knowledge. And I've been experimenting all of Sha'ban. Actually, I've been experimenting since Rajab with the idea of a virtual masjid. Of course, fiqhan, we have some issues there. So I want to be really clear. I don't mean that, for example, I would lead a prayer for other women, because you can't follow, if you're at home and your masjid is, and let's say an imam is praying in Washington, D.C. and you're in Minneapolis, you can't follow on a screen. A lot of women don't know that because so many messages are built. It's not acceptable. Not in any school has it been something that has been acceptable. So in that case, what do we do with that virtual masjid? How do we benefit from it? And what I've learned in my experiments at Rabata we have a Rabata virtual mosque. What I've learned is that there's something really special and unique about coming together in a space and a digital space where everyone is doing their own thing. We're all reading our own Quran, but we're together. And then we come together at the end of our planned virtual mosque, when we sort of go into the virtual mosque. When we leave the virtual mosque, we make dua together. And so that's some things that we can do. We can create virtual mosques with our friends. Maybe talk to your local mosque and see if they'd like to create a virtual mosque, being mindful of the fiqh aspects of Tarawih. I hesitate to talk about a virtual masjid because I don't want to, I just want to be really clear that I'm not saying we can all pray Jama'ah in our homes. Yeah, I'm not saying that.
Actually, I'd love to unpack that a little bit from a fiqh perspective, Anse. So you are saying that Dada Weah is not something that we can pray virtually in Jama'ah. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in a Jama'ah prayer, a prayer that we pray together is the asl, the origin of it is there's an imam, and behind the imam are rows of men. And then in the Prophet's mosque, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were actually rows of children. I have to mention that because the visual for me is so beautiful, that children are just couched in this beautiful family envelope, right? Where they feel watched, and they feel in a, like they have a space. Anyway, so then the children were there, and then the women in line. So it was line after line after line after line. So fuqhan in fiqh, those lines can go on forever. Like you can have, mashallah, like think about the Kaaba. And when you go to the Kaaba, or even Masjid al-Nabi, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how the lines go on forever. In other places, in other Eid prayer, we go to Eid prayer in different places where the imam is way up there, and the lines go on and on and on. But what isn't okay is if, let's say I'm praying, okay, and I'm praying with you, Asma, and a bunch of other women, and we're praying here, okay, and I'm the imam, and you're following me, alhamdulillah. And then let's say my student who lived in Bosnia, she really missed us, and she's like, I want to pray with you. And so she's watching the screen, she's watching the prayer, and she's following us. That's not line after line. You see, like we've been separated by a lot of space. Not even, we can't be separated by a building. Like it has to be line after line. So the whole idea, this gets into a little bit of stickiness around, whoa, what are we doing in our masajid in America? Because very often we have women's spaces that, not very often, but I've seen where women's spaces are in a separate building. I've even seen where women's space is in front of the imam, and I was just like, oh, wow, like, wow. But so these are things that actually this experience is going to make us really think. And I'm talking about this a lot because a lot of women who are put into rooms in masajid. Now, if it's a room that's right behind, I have a problem with being put in a room where you cannot see the men, because what happens is that exactly what the fiqh is warning us against, which is that if the electricity goes out, or if that screen doesn't work, which happens all the time, by the way, then what happens is the women are stuck in the prayer. And they're like, I've seen this happen. They don't know what to do. They can't hear and they can't see.
Right.
I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about you can see the man, you can, I'm talking about you're literally in a separate place. So because women have been kind of taught that that's okay, there is really a general belief that it's okay. We've done an injustice to women. SubhanAllah. When the Prophet ﷺ does something, he does it right. We have to learn that he does it right. We have to follow him. We cannot think of a better way. Our way is not better than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so hopefully when we all come back to the message, we're going to be like, alrighty, Prophet's Mosque, here we come. But until then, Tarawih, pray it at home. You can take a rakhsa from the Shafi'i madhab and put the mushaf in front of you, set it on a music stand, and get a spiral one. I have a spiral one, so it opens up nice and flat. And I'll do a plug. You can buy one of those at Daybreak. You can probably get them elsewhere too, but you can buy one at daybreak.rabata.org, and you can open it flat on a like a music stand. And that way it's just really easy to read from during your tarawih. And then you finish your 2 rakats and you can turn the page. Like it's really, it makes it really lovely for that individual prayer. And of course you can pray at home in jama'ah with your family.
Right.
You can pray, you know, with whoever. And if you're all alone at home and you have only yourself, pray with the angels, make the intention, say, I intend to be the imam for my angels. And know that you're praying with your angels, and you can have your jama'ah in that way.
You know, it's such an interesting point that you brought up about, you know, juxtaposing where women have been praying in the masajid. This Ramadan, a lot of brothers are going to be able to feel what it feels like to not be able to go to the masjid or have, you know, this big, you know, congregation that you're a part of. So,
yeah, and I will say, I don't say this thinking, ha ha ha, you're going to feel this.
No,
Feel
obviously not. Yes.
But I do want to say, I appeal to all of the brothers to take a moment in that pain, take a moment and feel it in a different way, and just recognize, imagine that there are women, there are masajid in the world. In England, there are a lot of them, where I have known, and I have been personally a victim of this, where a woman has wanted to pray and been told you can't come in and pray in the parking lot. And these are stories we hear all the time. So just for a moment, I appeal to our brothers, and I don't appeal to them in any way out of sort of, not in bitterness or negativity, but just feel that moment so that when we can all come back together, you are the strongest allies to make sure that your daughters and your sisters and your wives and your mothers and your aunts and your coworkers and your colleagues are able to go into the masjid, see the architecture that you can see, experience the feeling of hearing the imam, knowing when to go down in ruku' and not feeling confused, knowing when to come up from sujood and not feeling lost, being able to hear the khutbah, being able to feel the feeling of the Prophet ﷺ's masjid, and to really gain that community that we are meant to gain from coming together in the masjid. So just for a moment, just sit in that place so that we will all together insist that all of our masajid become the masajid of the Prophet ﷺ.
And that goes back to your point, Anse, about being curious, all of us being curious about this experience. This is a new experience for all of us in so many different ways, for the brothers, for the sisters, for the mothers, for the daughters, for the sons, for everybody.
Single people, the brand new convert who's never fasted a Ramadan before.
Right.
I really want to encourage anyone who is brand new to look for a Rabata virtual space, or it doesn't have to be Rabata, look for a virtual space. I'm just so used to saying Rabata, but look for a virtual space where you can be in community with others, and be able to find that online space. And let's really appreciate the blessing, Allah's great blessing upon us, that we have these virtual spaces to come together in.
Well, that segues well, Anse, to my next question. So the mission of Rabata is to create positive cultural change. So, you know, I'd like to know, how have you seen cultural change in America since you came back from Syria? You know, what positive aspects and things have you seen change in America, and what would you like to continue to do? And I guess, you know, this could be a separate question, or you talk about this at the same time, but, you know, what has Rabata also done to promote female scholarship in America, and what changes would you like to continue to bring? And, you know, how do you see the face of scholarship in America in general?
So in 2012, I came back to the United States because of the war in Syria. I wasn't planning to come. I came here, actually, my sister was having a baby, and I came because she really wanted me to be there. It was her first child, and she was 37 years old. And I came for her. And when I was here, the war entered Damascus, and I had to stay. I had to stay. I'm not going to go into details about that. I'm bringing it up because at that summer of 2012, some of the students that I'd had who had come to Syria and had been my students there planned a tour of the United States, and during Ramadan, where I gave 69 talks across the United States in Ramadan. Just a footnote, don't do that. Anyway, That's not smart. Anyway, but I learned something that month. I was shocked, really. I felt, and it depended on where I went, and certainly were people of different experiences. But my feeling was that the situation for Muslim women had stagnated those 20 years. That in 2012, what I saw was that Muslim women were still struggling to have a voice in the masjid. They were very empowered in their work and in their studies and in their families and in their universities or what have you. But when it came to the masjid, when it came to their own feeling of themselves in Islam, there wasn't a place. And so that was one of the purposes of starting Rabata. I really believe in the power of education. And I really believe that in the past 6 years, we have seen great change in the attitude towards women and the attitude towards the idea of women scholars and women as religious leaders, Muslim women religious leaders. We have now Ustaza Zainab Ansari, who is a female, what is she called? A female scholar, female scholar in residence. And here in Minnesota, there's a local masjid who reached out to me because they were looking for they want to hire a female resident scholar. I love this. This is huge cultural change. People are beginning to see that, we need women in these roles, not just to get up and talk about menstruation, but to talk about our lives as Muslims and to really help us bring our community forward. For centuries, this is where women were. We sort of fell off that grid post-colonial times. There's lots of history there we could unpack, but we won't do that today. For me, I really feel that my vision for the future is a rising tide of female scholars and women who are spiritually connected, living in the shelter of one another and community into community care, like they really are caring for community. And when I see that, and I'm seeing it happening. We have our first graduating class coming up it was supposed to be this summer. They will still graduate. How we're going to celebrate that, we're not sure yet, but of Islamic teachers, Islamic school teachers, I mean. So that's our Islamic teacher certificate. And then we have a second one, which is a religious leadership certificate. I really see a future where our communities are growing in love with one another and in uplifting of one another and in the spiritual connection. This is critical. You asked about ilm. Knowledge without spirituality is an Orientalist. And so we have to really connect our knowledge of Islam to our spiritual connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the Quran, to our prayer, to all of these things. It's not enough to know. We have to know and live and love and live in joy, really. I really believe that we need to be living in joy and with one another in community. And inshallah, you can learn more about that at rabata.org. How's that for a
mashallah. That's a great plug-in.
Please, more.
You'd be terrible at plugs, but there you go. Rabata.org. Go check us out.
If you'd like to talk about Rabata and say, please go ahead. We'd love to hear more about it.
I would love to, because I'm, the cultural change that I'm looking for is really, I believe that women, and actually in my studies for my dissertation, there was a lot of research out there about how women they have a very important role in the cultural growth and development and the cultural sustainability of community, especially in religious community. And so it's really important that we have a space for women to learn traditional knowledge and to learn it in a serious way. Our academic institute is called Rabata. It's very serious learning. It's 4-leveled learning. And when I say it's serious, sometimes people get afraid of it. It's serious, but also we have plenty of classes that are just growing. They're just fun and growing. And I'm really proud that this year we were able to begin to have accessibility for the deaf and hard of hearing. So I'm really excited about that as well. Very important group that has not been, we as Muslims have not done a good job in including them in our programs. We also have a publishing company because we need, historically, one of the issues is that women have not we don't have the books that women wrote. We're not sure if they wrote them and they were lost, or we don't really know. So being able to have places and spaces where women can write is really important for the future of our Muslim community. And we also have Circles of Light, which is where we have our Rabata virtual mosque. And these are our worship activities that we do virtually, and chapters will do them face to face when it's not a COVID time, and we have a lot of other stuff, curriculum and all sorts of things. We have a youth program coming up, teen and youth. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And you can follow us on all of our different social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and check us out on our website to learn more.
So www.rabata.org.
Yep, RABATA.org. Yeah.
Okay. I think Faizan had
Yeah.
another.
Just we've been talking a lot about community and really about the importance of women in community spaces and in leadership positions and in education spaces. But getting back to Ramadan, one of the questions that I had is, how can people be of service to our community, especially during this time when everybody's social distancing and in social isolation?
It's tough, and it takes some creativity. We have to be creative and think outside the box, and we have to start doing things we've kind of stopped doing. So one of the things we've stopped doing is phone calls. We've stopped making phone calls. Everybody messages everybody. And we send those really dumb, I hate them. Excuse me for using such words as dumb and hate, but those, it's like you get this flyer that says Ramadan Kareem, and we send it to 150 million people, and we don't have any personal interaction with them. I'm just like, why are you filling out my phone with this stuff? Talk to me, and really, I suggest in service and with the idea of service, that we think about those people that we know in our community who are alone, the new convert. Reach out to them with an actual phone call, and more than once, like, not I did my good deed, look at me, yay. Develop a relationship. Ask about their family. Ask about their house. How's your plumbing? How's your refrigerator? How's your disposal? Is it working?
Okay.
Like, ask the
garbage disposal.
The garbage disposal. Thank you. All the details. Like, ask details is what I'm trying to say. Ask, what is the most recent book you read? Get curious about them too, and develop a relationship. Tell them, I'll call you in a couple of days, and do it, and then do it, and be a friend. I think in services, we need to learn how to be a friend like Omar radiallahu an. I have an essay about that in Joy Jots. If you haven't reached it yet, Asma, you will soon. And the idea here is that Omar radiallahu an, when he came, do I have a minute to tell the story, or should I just?
You have all the time in the world, Anse. Please keep going.
So when Omar radiallahu an went on hijrah from Mecca to Medina, he was when he went from Mecca, he was the only one who went out with strength. Like, he didn't hide, but he had meant to go with two others. Ayash was one, and then there was another. The third was held back by his family. They captured him and didn't let him leave. Ayash left, and they went together. When they reached, on their way, Ayash's brother, his half brother, who was actually Abu Jahl, and another, they discovered that he was gone, and they started to chase them. And right outside of Medina, they caught up with them. And so we have Umar radiallahu anhu, who is obviously their friend. So when I say be a friend like Umar, I'm speaking quite particularly about this incident. What happens is they reach there, and Ayash the brother is like, what did you do? You left your mother. She is saying that she's going to stay out in the sun, and she's never going to go in until you come back, and she's basically going to kill herself, and blah blah blah. And Ayash starts to feel guilty, and Amar says, hang on a second, listen, your mother, it's just a trick. I promise you, it's just a trick. If she gets hot, she's going to go in. It's fine. So he gives, what is that? Let's distill that. He gives him good advice while still recognizing, even though it was Umar radiallahu anh, while still recognizing that there's an emotional reaction happening now. I mean, this is Umar. He didn't just punch him in the nose. He didn't just say, what is up with you? I'm done with you, and just leave. He was talking to him. And then Ayash said, maybe I'll go back. There's some money that I left there. Maybe if I bring the money, it'll be better. And of course, Amar is saying, no. He says, listen, I will give you half of my money. And imagine just to keep him where he is for fear of his religion, thinking about his religion. And then Ayash says, oh, no, it's okay, I'll go. He says, okay, listen, if you're going to insist on going, take my camel, because my camel is the fastest and the strongest. And basically he gave him his Lamborghini. All right. Like he gave him his Mercedes. He gave him his car. And he said, take my car, be alone in my car so you can escape if you need to. Don't go on their camel where you can't escape if they capture you. Take my car, go in my car. So if it's trickery, you can just put the pedal to the metal and turn around and come back. And so he takes the camel, but then he's tricked along the way. And they take him and they tie him up and they take him back to Mecca. Now, Umar radiallahu an is still concerned about Ayash, even though like he's there and he's captured and he's in that state. When you read the narrations, it speaks about like there was a question of how was their faith, because it was so difficult that period of capture in Mecca. And so time passes anyway, and then a verse is revealed that is really bushra, it's good news to the people in Mecca. And Umar is so excited about this for Ayash and for the others that he sends it to them in great happiness. And so what I want to say here is that Umar was a friend, and that is the type of friend we have to be. He wasn't with Ayash. They didn't eat together. They didn't pray together. They didn't, what he did is he met him outside of the city. So he met him where he was. So meet your people where they are. Then he gave him good advice that took into account his feelings. When he wasn't listened to, he didn't say, forget you, you're not gonna listen to me, fine. No, then he started offering him money. And then after he didn't take the money, he offered him the tools he might need to help him. So I think in this service, we need to be really in service to individual human beings. Very easy, and it's not always, so forgive me for saying that, but it can be very easy to sort of collect cans of food and pass them out to people that don't have names to us or hearts or families. Let's get deep. Let's do real service where we really talk to people, call them on the phone. Do a Zoom call, do a FaceTime call, look into their eyes, talk to them. Ask, and I'm really like, I know that it made everybody laugh, I suppose, to say, ask about their appliances and stuff. But like I'm saying, ask details. Ask details about their lives. What is the thing that's, what's the thing that's bugging them right now? And what are they struggling with? And maybe they're not struggling with anything. Maybe they're reading a really good book. What book are you reading? Share what's happening in your life too, but just make sure that it's not all about you. Ask questions. Yeah, exactly. And if they're not reading Joy Jots, then buy it for them and send it to them.
Yeah,
that's a great service. Oh my gosh, that's the service. Order Joy Jots. Actually, I will say instead of I of course I want to say Order Joy Jots because it's the best book ever. But we have another book called Crowning Venture, which is about women who've memorized the Quran. And so that's another way to really encourage the women in your life to make this the month of Quran. It's a beautiful book. It includes converts. It includes someone who was 60 when she memorized it. It includes young people and 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds and all different sorts of experiences of memorizing the Quran. And it's really motivating. And also there are tips and tricks and such like that. It's not a very long book, so it's easy to read too. It's a quickie. So that's something definitely that we can give to people as a little gift. So service, when we think about gifts, let's think about things that will really help them spiritually along the way. Maybe a new convert needs a convert package. She doesn't have a prayer carpet or prayer clothes, or she doesn't, or maybe you want to buy her maybe you want to buy someone who's alone, an elderly woman alone. Maybe you want to order for and send her some perfume that you can call it her dhikr perfume. I bought you some dhikr perfume. So every time you make dhikr, you can put this on and remember me and make dua for me. Let's get creative and really, there's so many, but in being creative, let's think about the individual person, not just think, how can I give to sort of these blank faces that don't have a name and need to eat? No, let's think about the individual person and see how we can best serve their life, their actual life.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Anse, really. we could sit here and listen to you all day, hours and hours and hours. We are way over time, but that is okay. We are not complaining. I do want to close with actually two questions. The first one is, and we're in this like sort of serious mode. We're going to get into something a little bit more like meeting me where I'm at, and I'm kind of hungry right now. So I would like to know, what are some of your favorite Ramadan foods, Anse?
So probably my favorite Ramadan food is fatteh, which is a very Syrian food that's like bread and yogurt and broth. I like fatteh djaj, which is with chicken, which is really weird that I like it because when I first moved to Syria, I was like, what is that gross thing with wet bread and yogurt? Like, ugh. But I love it. It's one of my favorite Ramadan foods. And probably my favorite is the one with eggplant and meat, magdous, fatteh magdous. I love that one. Oh my God. It's just like, I can't even tell you. So I just adore that. But otherwise I'm a soup person. I mean, generally I love soup in Ramadan. I just like soup all the time. And I really love soup in Ramadan. And it's, the older nutritionists will tell you it's a great thing to eat in Ramadan because it has lots of water in it, which is good for us. Yeah. So that's what I like to drink. People in Syria, what's really important to them is what they drink in Ramadan. Like there are Ramadan drinks, and they drink like an apricot drink and tamar hindi, which is a tamarind drink, and a licorice drink. My favorite is the tamarind drink. So I love that.
I just made harira soup. That's what I had for lunch. I wish I could share it with you.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I have some bread upstairs that's rising. I'm gonna put it in the oven. So that would be a really good match.
Yeah. How about I mail you some of my harira soup and you can mail me some of your bread and we can on Zoom have a iftar together.
That'd be fun.
There we go.
That would be so fun. So my last question for you is this. If you were to write something on a billboard today, like what would that be? What would you want the world to know? What is the, one sentence, couple sentences that you want the world to know right now?
The whole world, like as in the Muslim and non-Muslim and every.
The whole world. Whole world.
It's a tough question.
It is a tough
question. I mean, it's one billboard. I think that I would write, and I think that I would write in the remembrance of God is the calming of hearts. Because I really believe that. I really believe that with all of whatever else we're doing in our life, and whether we're Muslim or non-Muslim, like for those out there that are not Muslims, they don't have maybe salah or the sort of rituals that Muslims have to drag them back to that prayer carpet, when distance and forgetfulness and heedlessness raises its ugly head. But we all have that capacity to sit in remembrance and dhikr and tafakkur, the remembrance of the mentioning of God's name, and just looking at the beauty of everything Allah has given us and staying rooted and grounded in this incredible beauty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us from the cute. And now we're spring. Like how cool is it in Ramadan? We're all in different parts of the world, so we're experiencing spring differently. Here in Minnesota, I can see that the trees are fighting. They're just fighting to get a leaf they want. Then that leaf isn't coming soon. But we had snow yesterday here. But that leaf, and just to see that beauty that Allah created in the branch and the little tiny bud that's on the edge of the tree and the grass that is slightly turning green and that growth, all of the metaphors out there, all of that beauty. So in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the calming of hearts and is the serenity of the heart. And it's the heart that we need it's the heart that is that thing, that ever-changing thing, al-qalb, right? The ever-changing thing that we want to have, to thabbit, to make firm on as-sirat al-mustaqim, on this straight path. So I think that's what I would say.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Anse. It has been an extreme pleasure and honor to have you on our show tonight. And I've learned so much. I'm sure, Faizan, you have as well, and our audience. And we look forward to, inshallah, having you again soon, sometime in Ramadan. Hopefully, inshallah, we can have you back. Inshallah.
Thank you very much for having me. Good job on doing these cool, fun things, and great use of the internet to reach out and help people. You guys are always out there helping people and care. Sorry, that's my alarm clock.
No, that's okay. Maybe next time this cool, fun thing called Zoom, we can have an iftar together. I'm so serious about that, inshallah.
Sounds great.
Jazakallah khairan. Salaam
Alaikum
alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak. Well, that was great. Faizan, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to, like wrap up or share with what your like biggest takeaway was from that before we sign off, inshallah.
Yeah, I think having this conversation was really enlightening and really spiritually uplifting as we get closer to Ramadan. And I think one thing that really I took away from the conversation is just that Ramadan is a time to reconnect with Allah. And even though we may not be able to go to the masjid, even though we may not be around other people, this is an opportunity for us to, in this really forced sort of isolation that we're in, to really take that time to reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to get closer with him. I think that's one of the takeaways that I took. And then of course, secondly, I think we didn't intend for the conversation to go this way, but really talking about women in Muslim spaces and the importance of just all of that and sort of the opportunity that women have in the Muslim community versus outside the Muslim community where they're already succeeding. I think that's something that's an ongoing conversation. I'm very glad that we could have that in connection with Ramadan itself. So those are my two big takeaways.
Yeah. Well, Faizan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure co-hosting with you. I look forward to co-hosting with you again in the future. Missourians unite, inshallah. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Like I said, it was great co-hosting with you. And to the audience, Jazakallah khairan again for tuning in. Thank you for joining us on the Daily Dose COVID Conversations with CAIR. We've made this space available for a way for us to stay connected during our social distancing practices. And if you haven't tuned in before, please see some of our past shows. We've had Sister Dalia Mogahid on, we've had Imam Johari Abdul Malik, Imam Sohaib Webb, as well as, a lot of medical experts. And, we do this every single night at 8 p.m. So we have a lot of other shows for you to look at as well, inshallah. In Ramadan, we are going to move this to a 3 p.m. Eastern show. We will, start announcing that more and more, but this is the first time we're sort of letting everyone know that we won't be having the show at 8 p.m. any longer. It will be at 3 p.m. Eastern, inshallah. We'd love to hear from all of you about suggestions on topics, guests that you'd like to hear from. We definitely have been taking your suggestions and bringing these shows to you based on those suggestions. So we'd love to continue hearing from you, inshallah. Thank you all again. We will see you on Monday for a very special show. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Thank you, and wassalamu alaikum.